Today's episode is coming to you from the beautiful Susquehanna Valley in central Pennsylvania. Before going further, I would like to welcome our new listeners from South Korea. Additionally, I would like to express my gratitude toward the members of the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation for their recognition and generous gift of what I will dub the Foundation Crystal. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Further, I would like to thank the members of the Warrant Officer Association for the recognition at the annual meeting of the members, which I unfortunately could not attend. And thank you to Russ Smith, my chapter president, for accepting the award on my behalf. Thank you again for that recognition. Finally, I am happy to share my selection to CW5, and I look forward to continued service in this great nation. And now, on with the show.
Cohort W.
Welcome to another Cohort W podcast episode, bringing you inspiring and educational interviews with today's most exciting and enterprising young warrant officer leaders. Each episode is dedicated to exploring real-life leadership in the warrant officer cohort and tackling the problems faced in large-scale combat operations and multi-domain operations. And now, here's your host.
Hello. So welcome to the show. I am joined today by John Robinson from the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation Board of Directors. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Robinson, or Dr. Robinson. Can you tell me about you and how you came to be involved with the foundation, please?
Hi, Russ. Thanks very much for inviting me. I'm CW5 retired, John Robinson. I retired last year in 2020. I've been active in the U.S. Army Warrant Officer Association since I first became a warrant officer in 1995. And I found that was an excellent organization for mentorship as I grew up in the warrant officer ranks. And as I came to the twilight of my active career, I became more interested in the work that the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation was doing. At one time, the foundation was a spin-off committee of the Warrant Officer Association. But over time and through the excellent leadership of CW5 retired Dave Welch, the foundation spun off completely and became its own 501c3 nonprofit organization. And they've been that way for several years. And I thought, as a former history teacher and a history buff myself, this would be a great place for me to jump in and continue to make a contribution to the cohort as I retire. So I was invited to join the board of directors of the foundation in 2019, and I became their director of strategy, having done a lot of strategist work within the Army, and I've been with the foundation ever since.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a great lead into the next question. I was going to ask you about your role in the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation, and how did you, in that role, come to decide on a fellowship as an activity or action?
As director of strategy for the foundation, I am principally focused on making sure that we spend our hard-raised resources in a good way that those contributing to the foundation would be proud of. And so we look for opportunities across the country to increase visibility on the good works of the warrant officer cohort and to build a good impression of both the warrant officer cohort and their good works. And it occurred to us that it would be a good opportunity to bring in a younger voice into the foundation on an annual basis to keep us all grounded in how the Army evolves. I'm the newest retiree on the foundation, but like any car you pull off the lot, our knowledge depreciates as soon as we drive away. And the rest of the board members are also retired with a little bit more time under their belt. And so we thought we'd like to bring an active warrant officer into the organization on an annual basis that could help keep us grounded with how the warrant officer cohort continues to evolve within the active National Guard and Reserve components. And so we established a foundation and invited applications from staff and faculty at the Warrant Officer Career College at Fort Rucker. We thought it was a win-win opportunity, both to keep us in tune with how the Army is rolling along and also to give a fellow an opportunity to participate in foundation board matters and to help us tell the Army story.
All of this wraps up in some creative way that fellow will help you accomplish the organizational mission of educate about the Warrant Officer Cohort. I won't ask you to comment on this year's incredibly fabulous and creative fellow. However, can you tell me about or talk to me about the 2022 fellowship?
I'll spare the audience my comments on the fabulousness of this year's fellow, although he really was quite creative. But over the course of 2021, he helped us to set a standard for what we would like our fellows to do moving forward. And that is, as you say, Russ, to help educate our audience, both the Warrant Officer Cohort and the broader public, as to the fabulousness of the Warrant Officer Cohort itself. And that's not just the cohort today, but the cohort of years past, because it helps us to connect with prospective new warrant officers if we focus on contemporary history. We are the historical foundation, after all, but I find that warrant officers relate best to contemporary history. And so we like to tell stories about what warrant officers are going and doing right now. Now, this year's fellow has been telling good stories about how our Warrant Officer Cohort is contributing to the Army's top priorities of large-scale combat operations and multi-domain operations. And we're doing this through creative podcasts. But there are lots of other ways to tell the story, in print form, digitally, and maybe you could surprise us. So, as we look forward to 2022, we hope that we can encourage new applicants to be creative and tell us how they think they can help us tell the contemporary history, to tell the story today of what warrant officers are all about.
For me, in my background, talking about LISCO and MDO was a natural lens to look through. But there are so many other perspectives out there that applicants could utilize to view and record history. And the media that you mentioned are great media too. I think there's just a ton of creative lenses to view the work we do through that can illuminate new meaning about our work and its importance to the Army as a warrant officer. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And again, anyone out there listening who is part of the career college, who is looking for that opportunity for, that platform to tell the story in your creative, unique way, my advice is always make the Army tell you no. Put in that application, work it out, talk it out, and go for it. So before we wrap up here, John, one of the things I always ask anyone on my show is, what would you tell a new warrant officer?
I appreciate that question, Russ, and it's a bit of a softball because when I was a department head, like you just were at the college, and an instructor, I would always leave the warrant officer candidates with my simple 3-point plan in how to be a good new warrant officer. And it seems simple, but I'll elaborate a bit. My 3-step plan is always read, ask questions, and get plugged in. I think new warrant officers have to devote some time to reading about their craft, about the history of the new unit that they're joining, and about how the Army runs. What we know is that officers, NCOs, and soldiers turn to warrant officers as the oracle of information. And you don't get that through the osmosis of putting an FM under your pillow and hoping it seeps into your brain. You've got to crack the book a little bit. And there are lots of things to read to help make you a better warrant officer. So establish a reading plan and stick to it. And then I tell warrant officers, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions of the new mentor that you've selected. Ask questions of your boss. Don't be afraid to ask questions of your subordinates. Experienced officers know that when a new officer joins their ranks and he has questions, it's a telltale sign that they're eager to learn and they want to be a contributing member of the team. Asking questions about your organization and your craft doesn't reveal your ignorance. It reveals your anxiousness to learn all you can about this new world you've entered. And the last thing I advise new warrant officers is get plugged in. Get plugged into your unit. And that means participate in everything that your unit is doing. Officer PT, you need to be there. Hails and farewells, always go and bring your spouse. If you've got a branch ball, make sure you're there and make sure you bring your spouse with you. A happy spouse next to an eager young warrant officer sends the message that that warrant officer is excited to be part of the organization. And get plugged into that organization's battle rhythm. Attend the training meetings. Participate in the prop blasts and the spur rides. whatever the traditions are of your unit, get plugged into those and show your eagerness and willingness to become a part of your organization. Thanks, Ross.
Great. Thank you, John. I appreciate your time, and I've appreciated the opportunity to get to know you and the board of directors this year and some of the members of the association through the routine meetings and opportunities to discuss the work and the progress of the podcast on behalf of the foundation. So thank you very much. Final note, very sorry about your Red Sox, but there's always next year.
Absolutely. Hope springs eternal. You've been a great fellow, Russ. You've set a bar for the next fellow, but every fellow will be new and different, and we hope that others are interested in helping us tell the Army story.
Final note, I encourage all leaders out there who are able to take that chance and apply. That's what leaders do. They put themselves on the line, and you'll never know what will happen when you do. Thanks, John.
On behalf of the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation, thank you to today's guest for your insights on the future of warfare and the importance of the warrant officer that fight.
Please visit warrantofficerhistory.org to learn more about how you can help support the foundation and programs like this. Special thanks to our theme music composer, Josh DeStefano. Visit joshdestefano.com to hear more of his outstanding works.